Welcome back, everyone, to another explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. Right now, as you're just sitting there watching this, an epic microscopic war is raging inside your bloodstream, involving literally billions of tiny soldiers. Because think about it, for a pathogen, like a bacterium, a fungus, or a virus, your internal environment is basically an absolute paradise. It's warm, it's packed with nutrients, and it offers free transport. But obviously, from our vantage point, we really don't want to be hosts. So today, we're going to take a guided tour of the internal battlefield of the immune system, mapping out exactly how our bodies defend themselves.
Picture this: a macrophage, which is a type of immune cell, suddenly engulfs a rod-shaped bacterium. A massive mystery immediately presents itself right there, which is, how does it actually know? Out of all the billions of cells floating around inside you, how does this single immune cell instantly recognize that this specific bacterium is an enemy? Well, that question, how we distinguish a friend from a foe, is the absolute foundation of everything we're about to cover.
So here is our roadmap for the explainer. We'll start by entering the battlefield, then we'll meet our innate first responders. Next, we'll compare them to our specialized adaptive forces, explore the bridge connecting the two, and finally, we'll look at what happens when the whole system fails.
Okay, Section 1. Welcome to the battlefield, distinguishing self from non-self. The fundamental challenge your immune system faces every single second of your life is telling the difference between your own cells and foreign invaders.
Moving to Section 2, innate immunity, our first responders. This is your rapid, evolutionarily ancient, broad-spectrum line of active combat.
Let's look at how this plays out in real life. Say you're doing some weekend woodworking and ouch, you get a splinter. Step 1. That splinter breaches the skin, dropping hostile bacteria right into your tissues like a microscopic Trojan horse. Instantly, the innate system kicks in. Step 2. Mast cells in your connective tissue release a signaling molecule called histamine. Step 3. That histamine causes nearby blood vessels to dilate and become much more permeable. Now, this isn't just some annoying symptom causing redness and swelling. It's actually a deliberate tactical advantage. The area gets warm because heat speeds up cellular metabolism for the upcoming fight. At the exact same time, immune cells called macrophages release chemical signals to attract backup. And finally, step 4, that backup arrives. Neutrophils flood out of the capillaries and literally digest the invading pathogens and any cellular debris. It's fast, it's highly local, and it is incredibly effective.
Section 3. Comparing our two defenses. While innate immunity is absolutely amazing, jawed vertebrates, like us, have evolved a second, highly specialized system to work right alongside it.
Think of it this way. On one hand, we have innate immunity. It's universal across all animals, it acts super rapidly, and it relies on a small set of receptors to recognize broad traits. It acts a lot like throwing a really wide net. But on the other hand, adaptive immunity is found only in vertebrates. It develops a lot more slowly, but it is the highly trained sniper of the immune system. It uses a vast, almost unimaginably large array of customized receptors to recognize traits specific to particular pathogens. We are talking about billions of possible lock and key combinations, ensuring that virtually any invader can be specifically identified and targeted.
Section 4, adaptive immunity, our specialized forces. This response relies entirely on highly trained white blood cells hunting down specific targets using customized weaponry. So the really crucial point here is how these specialized forces are actually deployed. When a pathogen enters the body, it brings along antigens, which are just large foreign molecules. Our specialized white blood cells use their custom receptors to bind to a tiny, accessible portion of that antigen, called an epitope. The response breaks down into two main arms. First up, we have B cells, handling the humoral response. They target extracellular pathogens floating around in your blood and lymph. When activated, a single B cell can pump out 2,000 antibodies every single second. Seriously, just let that biological manufacturing marvel sink in for a second. These antibodies bind to viruses or bacteria, neutralizing them or tagging them for destruction. Second, we have cytotoxic T cells, managing the cell-mediated response. Think of them as ruthless assassins. Their target? Your own body cells that have already been infected. They lock onto the infected host cell and release toxic proteins that force the cell to self-destruct before the virus inside can mature and spread.
But the true superpower of the adaptive immune system is immunological memory. When you're first exposed to a pathogen, it takes about 10 to 17 days for your adaptive response to peak. But during that initial fight, your body generates these long-lived memory cells. If that exact same pathogen enters your body again, even decades later, these memory cells trigger a secondary response. And that secondary response is way faster, peaking in just 2 to 7 days, of much greater magnitude, and significantly more prolonged. It is so fast and so massive that it usually wipes out the pathogen before you even feel a tickle in your throat. This is exactly why you rarely get the exact same bug twice, and it's the entire biological magic trick behind how vaccines protect us. Let's move to Section 5, the bridge between systems. How do these slow, highly specialized adaptive forces even know when to deploy? Well, the innate system serves as their essential foundation.
This brings us to a process called antigen presentation. Think of this as the ultimate intel handoff. When an innate scout, like a macrophage or dendritic cell, engulfs and destroys a pathogen, it doesn't just, spit out the trash. It actually takes fragments of that dead pathogen, binds them to a specialized host protein called an MHC molecule, and pushes them right up to its surface. It's wonderfully macabre if you think about it. The scout is essentially wearing the enemy's armor, holding up a molecular flag to the rest of the body, advertising, "Hey, look what I found. We definitely have an intruder."
And here's exactly how that handoff works. First, the antigen-presenting cell engulfs the pathogen. Next, it displays that antigen fragment using a specific protein called MHC class II. Now, here comes the commander of the adaptive immune system, the helper T cell. The helper T cell physically binds to this displayed antigen complex. Once they're locked together, they exchange chemical signals called cytokines. These cytokines are basically biochemical secure passwords. Without this exact molecular handshake, the specialized adaptive forces stay completely locked down. This deliberately prevents them from accidentally deploying and destroying your own healthy tissue. But once that password is confirmed, the helper T cell sounds the alarm. It rapidly clones itself and releases its own signals to activate the B cells and cytotoxic T cells we talked about earlier. Without this foundational intel from the innate system, the adaptive system just stays completely dormant.
Section 6. System failure. Look, this biological symphony is an absolute miracle of nature, but the weapons it uses are highly destructive. Let's see what happens when the checks and balances fail.
Remember that splinter from earlier? The redness and swelling was a local inflammatory response. But sometimes a severe bacterial infection can trigger a systemic inflammatory response. This is an overwhelming body-wide reaction. Instead of a localized swelling, your body releases massive amounts of signaling molecules globally. This leads to an extremely high fever, a very dangerous drop in blood pressure because capillaries are dilating everywhere all at once, and poor blood flow to your vital organs. In this scenario, it's often not the bacteria itself doing the most damage, but rather the body's own defense mechanism becoming a lethal threat.
When a systemic inflammatory response reaches its extreme, it leads to a condition known as septic shock. I really want you to let this number sink in. 200,000. That is the number of people whose deaths are contributed to by septic shock each year in the United States alone. It's fatal in roughly 1/3 of all cases. It is a stark, very heavy reminder of just how devastating our own immune defenses can be when this complex regulatory system fails.
And septic shock isn't the only way this delicate system can be disrupted. If the immune system loses its self-tolerance, it stops distinguishing self from non-self and actually begins attacking healthy body tissues. This is what results in autoimmune diseases like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. Alternatively, some pathogens have evolved to directly attack the system itself. HIV, for example, is so devastating because it operates like an invading army, strategically taking out the enemy's communications towers. By specifically infecting and destroying the helper T cells, HIV literally burns down the bridge between the innate and adaptive systems, eventually leaving the body completely defenseless.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Where exactly is that razor-thin line between a life-saving fever that speeds up tissue repair and a fatal system shock that destroys the body? Your internal battlefield is defined by a staggeringly complex, beautifully orchestrated balance. Every second of every day, your innate and adaptive systems are communicating, adjusting, and fighting to keep you alive. The more we understand this system through explainers like this, the better equipped we are to intervene when that balance falters. Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.